Hebrews 6 verses 7 to 8. When rain meets root, fruit, refusal, and the fire that follows. For ground that drinks up the rain falling on it repeatedly, and that produces a crop useful to those for whom it is cultivated, receives a blessing from God. But if it produces thorns and thistles, it is worthless and on the verge of being cursed. Its end is to be burned. Hebrews 6 verses 7 to 8. The preacher of Hebrews now gathers all his warning into a single, searching picture, a parable as pastoral as it is perilous. After describing those who, though enlightened, fall away, Hebrews 6 verses 4 to 6, he turns our eyes to a field beneath an open heaven. The same rain falls, yet two harvests emerge, one blessed, the other barren. Grace descends, but judgment reveals. It is a scene both ordinary and eternal, a mirror of every soul that has lived beneath the sky of divine mercy. Hebrews 6 verses 7 to 8 teaches that repeated rain received, real fruit revealed, and a resolute end decreed together expose the heart's true condition before God, distinguishing genuine faith that bears fruit from apostasy that ends in fire. First, repeated rain received. For ground that drinks up the rain falling on it repeatedly. The passage begins not with drought, but with abundance. The Greek word gay, translated ground or land, drinks, piousa, the rain that comes often, polakis. The image is of steady grace, not sporadic mercy. Thayer notes that the verb implies absorption rather than mere exposure. The land receives what heaven gives. Kittle traces the metaphor through Israel's scriptures, where rain signifies the enduring benevolence of divine revelation. The word proclaimed, the Spirit poured out, covenant privileges renewed again and again. Calvin aptly observes that this repetition shows God's persistent patience. He does not test the field with famine, but tenders it with favor. These Hebrew believers, like Israel of old, had stood under showers of truth, sermons, sacraments, the witness of the Spirit. As Bruce and Hodge emphasize, the issue is not whether rain has fallen, but whether it has taken root. Grace may be received outwardly, yet resisted inwardly. And here lies the pivot. Repeated exposure to divine privilege never leaves the soil neutral. Each sermon softens or hardens. Every outpouring of mercy moves us toward fruit or toward futility. Grace demands growth. Second, real fruit revealed. The blessed field produces a crop useful, eutheton. Kittle notes that this word signifies suitability to purpose, fruit that fits the sower's design. Such fruit, says Hendrickson, is the outward evidence of inward life, the labor of love and service to the saints that the author later commends, 6:10. To this field comes a blessing from God, not a mere approval of outcome, but the benediction of fellowship, the assurance of belonging. But the second field tells a different story. It yields thorns and thistles, acanthai kai triboloi, words heavy with Genesis 3 resonance. The flora of the fall, the fruit of curse. Thayer calls them injurious growths, a fitting emblem of apostasy's harvest. The land is called adakimus, disapproved, failing the test. As Schreiner explains, the term denotes not ignorance, but rejection after examination. The soil has been tried and found unwilling. This distinction captures Hebrews' theological precision. The barren ground does not represent believers losing salvation, but professors without possession, those who, having shared external privileges, bear no fruit of regeneration. Calvin and Haldane insist, the warning concerns not the instability of the elect, but the exposure of the false. Hebrews 6 verses 7 to 8 visualizes what Hebrews 6 verses 4 to 6 declared, the decisive difference between temporary experience and true faith. The metaphor thus reveals the moral necessity of fruit. God's reign is not ornamental, it is operative. Where Christ's life dwells, it manifests in holiness, humility, endurance, and love. As Hughes observes, the crop useful is not measured by brilliance or busyness, but by usefulness to others, faith expressed through service, truth embodied in charity. Third, a resolute end decreed. The unfruitful ground, is on the verge of being cursed, and its end is to be burned. The phrase, ungus kataras, marks proximity to judgment, near, inevitable, deserved. The farmer's fire is not an act of spite, but of justice, a final clearing of what refuses to yield. A.T. Robertson captures the gravity of the syntax, telos kau sin, its end, burning. No adornment, no mitigation, just verdict. Haldane and Schreiner read this as the theological counterpart to chapter 6 verse 6. Those who crucify the Son of God afresh face the only end consistent with such rejection. The imagery mirrors the justice of Christ's kingdom parables. The tares burned, the fruitless tree cut down, the branches withered and cast into the fire. Yet even this warning breathes mercy. The preacher's intent is not despair, but diligence. The severity is meant to awaken hope's perseverance. As Bruce and Peterson note, the very fire that purges the barren field also refines the fruitful one. God's holiness is not divided. The warning is therefore covenantal, not capricious, meant to secure endurance by showing what unbelief deserves. And so, the image functions as a hinge in Hebrews' argument. It concludes the impossibility of renewal, Hebrews 6 verses 4 to 6, by portraying its outcome, and prepares for the encouragement to follow, Hebrews 6 verses 9 to 12. The rain and fire alike serve God's redemptive purpose, to separate profession from possession, shadow from substance, and to bring his people safely to perseverance in Christ. Reflections for today. We stand, each of us, beneath a generous sky. The rains of truth have fallen oft, sermons heard, scriptures opened, providences endured, mercies renewed. The question is not whether we have been watered, but whether we have borne fruit. The word preached every Lord's day, the grace tasted at the table, the Spirit's quiet stirrings in conscience. These are not mere experiences to catalog, but invitations to cultivation. Our age mistakes exposure for transformation. We drink from digital streams, attend conferences, and applaud doctrine, yet our lives may remain untilled. The warning of Hebrews 6 whispers through the noise. Soil is judged not by how much rain it receives, but by what it yields. What, then, are the thorns and thistles of today's field? Perhaps the thorn of cynicism that grows beneath the pretense of discernment, the briar of complacency rooted in comfort, the creeping vine of self-preservation that chokes prayer, service, and sacrifice. These are not merely moral failings. They are spiritual symptoms of ground resisting grace. But take heart, the grace that warns also works. If the rains still fall, the field is not yet forsaken. The Spirit can plow again what has grown hard. The Word can seed new life where barrenness once reigned. The call is not to despair, but to diligence. Show the same earnestness to have the full assurance of hope until the end. 6:11. So let this parable search and steady you. Do not rest in rainfall, seek root and fruit. Welcome the plow of conviction, the pruning of providence, the patience of the sower who will not give up his field. Where the rain of grace is met with the soil of faith, blessing follows. And that blessing, unlike the fleeting dew of feeling, will not fade when the fire comes. Conclusion. Hebrews 6 verses 7 to 8 stands as both mirror and mercy. It reflects what we are and reveals what God desires us to become. The ground that receives his rain and yields fruit shows the evidence of saving grace. The ground that resists exposes the tragedy of apostasy, the heart that has heard and hardened. Yet the passage is not the last word. The next verse opens with hope. But, beloved, we are convinced of better things concerning you. The lesson is clear. Rain received, fruit revealed, and decreed. The same grace that falls upon us now will one day judge its result. Let every privilege drive us to perseverance. Every warning deepen our worship, and every rainfall remind us that Christ himself is both the rain and the root of every living thing. Where he dwells, the field will flourish, and the blessing of God will remain forever.